Jannik Sinner couldn't have imagined a better start to his ATP Finals campaign in Turin. In front of a packed home crowd at the Pala Alpha Tour, the Italian delivered a statement performance, dismantling Felix Auger-Aliassime 7-5, 6-1 in just over 90 minutes. It was not just a win, it was a declaration. The reigning champion arrived in Turin determined to defend his crown and send a clear warning to Carlos Alcaraz, his closest rival for the world #1 ranking. From the very first point, Sinner looked locked in. His focus, his footwork, and his signature precision from the baseline gave the impression of a player who was completely at peace with his game. Felix, on the other hand, started well, holding serve with authority and matching the Italian in the early rallies. The Canadian's forehand had depth, his first serve was reliable, and for a few games, it seemed like this could be a close contest. But as the first set progressed, the familiar pattern of a Sinner match began to emerge. The Italian's consistency began to break down his opponent's resistance. Every rally was a test, every ball a mirror of pressure. Felix began to struggle with the relentless rhythm. At 5-4, with Sinner leading, Auger-Aliassime managed to save a set point but couldn't maintain that intensity. Serving at 5-6, he led 30-0, only for Sinner to step up and win 4 points in a row, breaking at the perfect moment. The first set was gone, and with it, much of Felix's energy. After returning from a quick trip to the locker room, Auger-Aliassime looked physically uncomfortable. There were whispers around the press box of a possible leg issue. His movement was slower, and his serve lost its bite. Sinner, sensing the weakness, went for the kill. He broke immediately to open the second set and held serve effortlessly. The Italian was now unplayable, hammering forehands, controlling points, and barely giving his rival any chance to breathe. At 4-0, the match felt over. The Canadian called for medical attention at each changeover, clearly struggling, but chose to continue out of respect for the crowd. When he double-faulted at 1-5, Sinner pounced. A clean forehand winner closed the match, and the Pala Alpha Tour erupted. Victory for Jannik Sinner. Convincing, clinical, and symbolic. In the post-match interview, the 24-year-old Italian was humble but clear. This was only the beginning. "It's always special to play here," he told Tennis Channel. "The energy is unbelievable. I just try to stay focused, enjoy it, and play my best tennis. I hope Felix recovers quickly. You don't want to win that way." But the subtext was impossible to ignore. After the match, the Italian press framed it as a message to Alcaraz. Sinner, who trails the Spaniard by just a handful of points in the live rankings, knows that every victory in Turin counts double. Not only does it bring him closer to defending his title, but it also pushes him toward finishing 2025 as the year-end world #1. For Carlos Alcaraz, watching from his hotel suite in Turin, the message couldn't have been clearer. Sinner is not slowing down. The two have built one of the most compelling rivalries in modern tennis, a clash of personalities, styles, and philosophies. Alcaraz, emotional and explosive, thrives on improvisation. Sinner, calm and surgical, thrives on structure. Their duels have become microcosms of tennis's evolution, art versus precision, chaos versus order. As Sinner left the court, waving to the ecstatic Italian crowd, his eyes hinted at something more than satisfaction. It wasn't just about the win over Felix. It was about momentum and control. He knew what everyone else in Turin knew too. The path to the title and to history goes through Carlos Alcaraz. When Jannik Sinner walked off court after his opening win, the cheers were deafening. Italy had its hero back, and Turin was ready to celebrate him. But behind the applause and the perfect start to his ATP Finals title defense, there was an emotional storm brewing. For Sinner, this week in Turin was not just about tennis. It was about redemption, pride, and a delicate battle with his own nation's expectations. Just days earlier, the Italian media had turned against him. The controversy erupted when Sinner announced that he would not play in the upcoming Davis Cup finals with Team Italy, citing fatigue and the need to rest before the 2026 season. It was a decision that didn't sit well with fans, or with some of the country's tennis legends. The most vocal critic was 1960s icon Nicola Pietrangeli, who publicly accused Sinner of turning his back on his country, and called his decision a slap in the face to Italian tennis. The comments spread like wildfire. Newspapers and talk shows dissected his choice for days, questioning whether modern athletes had lost their sense of national duty. For Sinner, the criticism hit hard. He had spent years cultivating a quiet image of discipline and respect. The idea that he didn't care about representing Italy couldn't have been further from the truth. So when he stepped onto the Pala Alpitour court, it wasn't just for himself, it was to remind everyone that he was still Italy's champion. In his post-match interview, Sinner addressed the controversy head-on. "This country gives me so much," he said, visibly emotional. "I'm representing Italy, and it's always an honor. Playing here, in front of these people, is something I'll never take for granted." His voice wavered slightly, and the crowd responded with a long, heartfelt applause. It was a moment of connection, the kind that transcends sport. For the first time since the controversy broke, the tension seemed to ease. He continued, "Of course, I always want to play for my country. But this season has been long and demanding. I want to make sure I'm healthy and ready to give my best in 2026. That's why I made the decision I did. It's not about refusing. It's about preparing for the future." It was a balanced, thoughtful answer, the kind that defines Sinner's character. While many players might have reacted defensively, he approached the issue with honesty and calm. His maturity has always been one of his most powerful weapons, both on and off the court. Back in the locker room, those close to him said the victory over Auger-Aliassime carried more than just ranking points. It was a statement of resilience. His coach, Simone Vagnazzi, told Italian reporters, "Jannik doesn't talk much, but when he plays like that, it's how he speaks. That's his way of answering criticism." Indeed, the numbers from his match spoke volumes. 21 winners, just 9 unforced errors, and 83% of first serve points won. He didn't just win, he dominated. Still, the emotional weight of Turin is undeniable. Sinner is playing at home, defending a title, and doing so under the scrutiny of an entire nation. Every victory brings cheers, but every small misstep brings headlines. That's why his connection with the crowd has become so important. During changeovers, fans shout his name, kids wave signs with "Forza Jannik" written in bold letters. There's an unspoken understanding that Sinner represents something deeper, a sense of hope and modern pride for Italian tennis. Seeing the full stadium, feeling that energy, it's incredible, Sinner said later in the press conference. "When I play here, I feel like I'm part of something bigger. It's not just a tournament, it's home." His decision to skip the Davis Cup may have caused division, but his performance in Turin is beginning to heal that rift. His focus now is total. With Alexander Zverev waiting in the next round, Sinner knows that any distraction could prove costly. Yet, as he left the press room that night, smiling and waving to fans, it was clear that the Italian public's affection had returned. The boos of a few days ago had turned into applause once again. Jannik Sinner had not just won a tennis match, he had won back his people. The next morning, Turin woke up buzzing. Every sports headline carried the same message: Sinner strikes back. His win over Auger-Aliassime had done more than secure 200 crucial points. It had re-energized Italy's faith in their champion. But there was no time to celebrate. The next opponent on Jannik Sinner's path was Alexander Zverev, a battle that promised intensity, rivalry, and consequences beyond the court. Zverev, a former ATP Finals champion, had started his own campaign with a convincing win over Ben Shelton. Confident and motivated, the German made it clear that he wasn't coming to Turin to play the role of supporting actor in Sinner's homecoming story. "I've played here before. I know what it takes," he said. "The crowd is behind him, sure, but that doesn't change my game. If anything, it motivates me more." For Sinner, this second match was critical. A victory would secure a near-certain spot in the semi-finals and, more importantly, tighten his grip on the world #1 race. Carlos Alcaraz, sitting only 150 points ahead in the live rankings, would be watching closely. As match day approached, both players trained in separate sessions at the Pala Alpitour. Sinner's practice was quiet, focused, and precise. His hitting partners reported that he was working on one thing above all: the return of serve. Against Zverev's powerful delivery, that would be the key. Meanwhile, Alcaraz's name continued to echo through Turin's press room. Even when Sinner wasn't asked about him directly, journalists couldn't resist the comparison. Both men are shaping a rivalry that defines a generation, a battle for dominance that feels as inevitable as Nadal versus Federer once did. When asked about Alcaraz's form, Sinner smiled. "Carlos is always dangerous. We push each other to improve," he said calmly. "That's good for tennis, and for both of us." But behind that diplomatic tone, there was competitive fire. Sinner knows that Turin could be his chance to not only defend his title but also dethrone the Spaniard from the top of the ATP mountain. And he's not hiding from that ambition. "Defending the finals title without dropping a set last year was special," he said. "But this year means even more. Finishing as number one, that's the dream." Meanwhile, in another corner of the tennis world, Novak Djokovic added fuel to the fire. In a newly released interview with British journalist Piers Morgan, the Serbian champion, fresh from winning his 101st career title in Athens before withdrawing from Turin, made comments that stirred immediate reaction. When asked about Jannik Sinner's positive test for Clustanol at Indian Wells earlier that year, Djokovic didn't hesitate. "That cloud will follow him," he said bluntly. "Just like the CO situation followed me." The remark spread instantly across social media. Within hours, #Djokovic and #Sinner were trending across Europe. Fans debated whether Novak's words were an attempt to discredit the young Italian or simply a reflection of his own past frustrations. Sinner, however, refused to engage in controversy. When asked about it, he replied with characteristic composure, "I respect Novak. He's one of the greatest. But I prefer to focus on what's in front of me, not on words." The timing of the interview couldn't have been more disruptive. On the eve of one of the most important matches of the year, the tennis world was once again divided, between legacy and future, between Djokovic's shadow and the rising light of Sinner and Alcaraz. As night fell in Turin, the tension was palpable. Zverev trained behind closed doors, hitting heavy serves under dim arena lights. Sinner, meanwhile, ended his final practice session with a quiet rally and a handshake with his coach. "Ready?" asked Vagnozzi. Sinner nodded. "Always." Outside the arena, fans were already chanting his name. Inside, television crews prepared for what could be a defining moment in this ATP Finals, the battle between a methodical tactician and a resilient champion. For Sinner, victory would mean more than points. It would mean silencing any lingering doubts, reclaiming the mental space that controversy had tried to occupy, and setting the stage for the ultimate showdown, Carlos Alcaraz. The Italian knew what was coming. The pressure, the expectations, and the spotlight were all converging in Turin. But as he walked down the hallway toward the court, one thing was clear in his expression. He was no longer playing to prove something. He was playing to conquer. The clash between Jannik Sinner and Alexander Zverev unfolded under the bright lights of the Pala Alpitour, and by the time it ended, Turin had witnessed another masterclass from the Italian. With precision, control, and cold-blooded efficiency, Sinner defeated the German in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3, booking his place in the semifinals and sending yet another warning to Carlos Alcaraz. From the start, the energy inside the arena was electric. The Italian crowd roared with every serve, every point, every fist pump. Sinner's composure contrasted with the chaos around him. He absorbed the noise, used it as fuel, and turned it into something extraordinary. Against one of the best servers on tour, he broke early, a statement of intent that echoed across the ATP Finals. Zverev tried to respond with aggression, pushing Sinner deep into the court, but the Italian's defense was impenetrable. Time after time, he turned defense into offense, hitting laser-like backhands and forcing Zverev into errors. At 4-3, Sinner earned another break point, and when the German's forehand clipped the net and fell short, the crowd erupted. The first set was his, and so was the momentum. By the second set, Zverev's frustration was visible. He shook his head after missed forehands and barked toward his box. Sinner, meanwhile, looked calm and clinical, almost mechanical. He served with precision, returned deep, and anticipated everything. When he sealed the match with an ace down the tee line, the entire arena rose to its feet. "Turin is my fortress," he said afterward with a grin. "Every time I play here, I feel something special. The energy, the people, it pushes me to another level." That win not only secured his spot in the semifinals but also placed him within striking distance of the year-end #1 ranking. The live standings were clear. If Sinner won the title, he would overtake Carlos Alcaraz. The ATP Finals were now more than a tournament. They had become a two-man duel for supremacy. And Sinner wasn't the only one aware of it. Hours later, in another press conference room, Carlos Alcaraz was asked about Sinner's incredible form. The Spaniard, who had also advanced after defeating Taylor Fritz, smiled but couldn't hide his respect. "He's playing amazing tennis," Alcaraz admitted. "You can feel how confident he is right now. I know I'll have to play my absolute best if we meet again. That's the kind of match that motivates me the most." The media immediately seized on the quote. The inevitable final, one Italian outlet called it. Sinner versus Alcaraz. Destiny in Turin. The ATP Finals were becoming the climax everyone wanted. A rematch between two players who represent the sport's future. As the semifinals approached, both men trained in silence, each in his own bubble. Sinner focused on maintaining rhythm and recovery, practicing serves and short exchanges. Alcaraz, on the other hand, drilled high-intensity rallies and practiced counterattacks, preparing for Sinner's trademark aggression. The storyline was perfect. One playing at home, under the weight of a nation. The other, the Spanish prodigy chasing redemption after his early exit in Paris. Both had everything to gain, and everything to lose. Meanwhile, Novak Djokovic's shadow still lingered. His recent comments about Sinner's past positive test had divided opinions in the locker room. Some players privately criticized the timing, while others defended Djokovic's right to speak openly. But for Sinner, the noise no longer mattered. "People will always talk," he said. "What matters is what happens on the court." That quiet focus has become his identity. Gone are the days when Sinner was seen as a quiet talent. Now, he's the definition of professionalism and purpose, a player who lets his racket do the talking. As he stood in the tunnel before his semi-final match, the camera caught his face, emotionless, but determined. The red and white Italian flag waved in the background. Somewhere across the building, Alcaraz was warming up, hitting forehands with that familiar mix of power and fire. Everyone knew what was coming. The ATP Finals weren't just about prize money or trophies anymore. They were about legacy. About who would close the year as the undisputed king of men's tennis. And as the lights dimmed, and the announcer's voice echoed through the arena, "Please welcome, from Italy, Jannik Sinner." The message was clear. This wasn't just another night in Turin. It was the calm before the storm. The world was ready for the showdown, Sinner versus Alcaraz, the match that would decide it all.